Even.
It's 7:06. Do you know where your wind chimes are? It's 7:06. Do you know where your wind chimes are? I am Vernon J. Pentecost, and this is the Judgmental Hour.
In the darkness of future past, the magician longs to say, one chants out between two words, fire, dark with me.
Yes. Yes, it
Completely
is.
forgot which one we were doing.
Don't worry. It is relevant. Would you like to say the name? Would you like to say the stars instead of the bit or the information?
I will say the information.
Stars of stage and screen.
David.
Stars of stage and screen.
You might know him from the Academy.
Stars of stage and screen.
Buenos Aires.
Stars of stage and screen.
Blue Rose.
Stars of stage and screen.
Still not talking about Judy.
Stars of stage and screen.
Definitely not a kettle.
Stars of stage and screen.
No longer human form.
Stars of stage and screen.
Redubbed by Louisiana actor.
Welcome to Space Station USB 3.7. No relation. No relation.
At the furious edge of the trouble belt, I am two...
And I am 156. And I am 1561414. We are holographic 2-packs, Abbas and Ace of Bases.
And scanning radio waves of ether.
We went to Earth
Number 9.
and grabbed these DVDs of American TV show Twin Peaks.
What is a Jeffries? The Earthling call us spoilers.
Tonight, stars of stage and screen number ! Exclamation mark.
Yes. Another corner of the universe unlocked.
You are welcome. ...
...
So tonight, we are talking about the long-lost Phillip Jeffries. You might have heard of him from the Academy, says Gordon Cole, for the second time already in this episode. What do we need to know about Phillip Jeffries?
We need to know technically almost everything. What we do know is shorter than that. He was an agent of the FBI who worked under Lynch. Jeffries is Bowie. He worked under Gordon Cole and wasn't in Twin Peaks. Interestingly, only in Fire Walk with Me and The Return. Not in Twin Peaks itself. Weird choice. Like, makes sense, but weird. Weird idea.
Well,
let's bring Bowie in.
Cooper was obviously in, and then later they brought in Gordon Cole, and then they brought in Albert, but they didn't mention the one that Chris Isaacs plays, who disappeared in Fire Walk with Me, and they didn't mention
yes, Desmond. Chester Desmond.
Chester Desmond. He was good. So Phillip Jeffries was an FBI agent who disappeared in Buenos Aires in 1987, so before Twin Peaks was set, and even before Fire Walk with Me was set.
Yes. Well, the date, we'll get back to it later, but there's something about the dates, isn't there?
So they trained together, apparently, and this is probably all from the Secret History and all of those things. They trained together with Gordon Cole. Cole being David Lynch's character who can't hear very well and shouts. And Cole was a big fan of Jeffries' image and said the world wasn't enough for him. So he was also assigned to the Blue Rose Task Force that Gordon Cole and a few other people were on that had something to do with some disappearances cases that kind of popped up later.
Yes. In 1986, the Blue Rose Task Force leader Phillip Jeffries took an extended position in Buenos Aires to investigate an apparent international criminal enterprise, which is all very that's all additional information. If you just watch Fire Walk with Me, you don't know why he's in Buenos Aires. And it's a weird situation. This either he was planting stories that he was just never gonna explain, David Lynch, and then he just, when he did The Return, he him and Mark Frost expanded the Judy stuff. But it's weird that Bowie basically sets up what happens 25 years later in The Return. None of the Judy stuff's remotely relevant relevant in the old series.
No, there's no sense that anything other than Bob really is going on.
No, and for the most part, I remember people thought Judy was going to be Briggs, the Blue Rose guy who died.
Major Briggs, yeah, Bobby's dad.
Yeah, because his name is Garland Briggs.
Like Judy Garland.
So fans thought it was a code name for him for years, and then it turned out to be a evil.
I think
entity.
it was. I don't believe that Lynch ever meant to do that, because that Jiao Day seems such a convoluted twist on the name Judy. It's like, Lynch is into transcendental meditation, right? So I imagine he's like, he's thinking about this stuff, right? And he's got all these rich characters that just pop up for like a few scenes. I especially love that convenience store scene where you scan across. We'll talk about it in a bit. And on the left, you got that jumping man that just appears. Like, he's a crazy character and he's awesome, but he appears for like 10 seconds they're the woodsman, and then the Cholmondeley, and the
Tremont.
And the arm, which the man from the other place that turns into a tree, and it's all of these rich, weird kind of very Maudie kind of stories. And I imagine
it's a testament to Twin Peaks' weirdness and the sort of weirdness of the characters, or uniqueness of the characters, that Bowie came in as one of the most sort of like, just in terms of storyline, he's interesting, but in terms of a character, just sort of like just a very mundane man. Like, there's nothing to his actual character that's weird. He's just a very straight-laced FBI agent.
I think that's the I wouldn't say joke per se, but that's the thing that Lynch really seems to love, that the FBI on the surface looks very normal, but is very, very weird underneath. And so you got this agent, and he's not the only agent, because obviously Chester Desmond disappears too, but there's an agent who just disappears, and that's just part of the stuff that the FBI look into. And I guess you could say that just expands on the stuff in the original series, where Cooper was like, he turns up and very quickly he's using all these esoteric and weird rituals to decide to like work out what clues mean.
Yeah, it's probably because you spend more, and by more I mean all of, except for the return, time with Cooper. But Cooper and Gordon are the oddballs, and the rest of the agents that we meet, like Albert and Mr. Blue Rose,
Tammy Preston,
and Tammy, they're all pretty much just and Bowie and Chester Desmond, all very straight-laced people. It sort of reminds me of when South Park would, in the early days, celebrities were trying to get onto like the South Park train in the early days when it became really popular, and they just made them voice like cats and dogs. Like, they had George Clooney come in and just play Kyle's dog or something like that, so he just barks.
Yeah. But downplaying it is the kind of joke there, isn't it? Downplaying what would normally have been a big deal. So when Jeffries is down there in Buenos Aires on something, he does identify Judy, and later he gets a letter from a young lady called Judy. And this is why I really don't buy that Lynch had any idea that this Judy was going to be anything other than just a person until way, way later. And then it was like, let's expand this little thread into this person being actually a malevolent entity, and one of the most powerful. And rather than just bringing something in that had no connection to anything before, but also he might have just totally forgot. They had a character called Jiao Day and got that name from some other book or something, or some idea, and then it was like, people like, yeah, there's a Judy in this already. He's like, yeah, okay. Well, you can make up the connection if you want.
It is interesting that with Lost, you get a very strong sense that they were, and I mean this with love, making it up as they go along towards the end. Like, I feel like they had some ideas, and then they had some start stuff and some end stuff, and then in the middle they were just sort of winging it, and you get that that sense with Twin Peaks sometimes, especially after the Laura Palmer stuff's been sold, and sort of especially with Fire Walk with Me, which was sort of like the opposite of what people wanted at the time. It was like a prequel rather than a continuation of what people. And same with The Return. The Return came back and didn't answer any questions really. But there's still some things in the older ones that make me think Lynch had it in the back of his mind that if I do come back, I'm going to explore this. So I think there's some things like, I imagine he knew that Judy wasn't just a regular person, but didn't know that it was a entity as such. But even like, I'll see you again in 25 years, that kind of stuff. Like, there's certain things that I think he put in there just in case. And I think the Bowie stuff was like a just in case situation. Like, if we do come back, I'll expand on this, but then things in real life got in the way in that Bowie died.
Well, he did die, didn't he?
He had to, I imagine if Bowie wasn't sick and didn't die, there might have been I think the things that happened to Jeffries that we're going to come to in a bit might not have happened. He
Maybe, but then again, we didn't hear anything from Chester Desmond afterwards. So it's like,
no one cares either.
Well, no one cares, but I mean, he was as mysterious as Bowie in that sense. Although Bowie, especially from the missing pieces stuff, we see some wild kind of stuff. But even the fact that he just vanishes from the office. So he's they do search for Jeffries later in the Palm Deluxe Hotel, and apparently had carved the word Jowday in the wall behind the telephone. But again, this is all stuff that was added many years later and not at the time. There's so much more. Let's drop back in. Let's look at some of the clips, and we can always drop back into some of the fun stuff in the background later.
In the darkness of future past, the magician longs to say, one chance out between two worlds, fire, walk with me.
So clip one, this is from Missing Pieces number 7. So Missing Pieces was the kind of stuff that was released just before The Return, right? Which was mostly stuff from Fire Walk With Me that was cut. Is that right?
Yeah, I feel like it might have been an anniversary for Fire Walk With Me, either 10 years or 15 or something, but it came before The Return, in the sense that I don't think The Return had been announced or anything.
Okay.
I think they brought it out as like how they do sort of things now, like 25th anniversary edition. Here's a lot of footage that you've never seen before.
Here's a lot of footage. So anyway, within a hotel in hot Buenos Aires, Argentina, there's accordion music and some young lovers walking around when David Bowie walks in a white suit with his hands in his pockets, open neck Hawaiian shirt. He approaches the desk and the balding concierge says, Mr. Jeffries, I hope you enjoy your stay at the Palm Deluxe. A thin Bowie huffs a little. He takes off his glasses. Gracias, he says. Do you have a Miss Judy staying here by any chance? Bald man gets a letter from behind the counter and says, here is a young lady. She left it for you. Bowie takes the letter and puts it in inner pocket. The man dings and tells bellboy to take Jeffrey's bag. Jeffrey turns and walks.
Exactly. I just vaguely remembered. I was thinking about Bowie's acting career. I can only remember this and that thing in Extras when he sings that song about how fat and miserable.
It was obviously in The Man Who Fell to Earth. That was his big one.
Oh yes, Moonwalk.
Moonwalker. Yeah.
I wonder how it came about. I feel like it was probably more collaborative than, like, I imagine Bowie loved Twin Peaks and the Twin Peaks gang loved Bowie.
Oh yeah.
It's a very good. This is what I would call stunt casting of Twin Peaks. I suppose it was very popular at the time, wasn't it? But it was like, I always see it as like cult popular as opposed to mainstream popular. But it was pretty.
It was a mainstream. The first series, especially, was a mainstream TV show, right?
They wanted to push it as like more of a mainstream murder mystery situation. That's why they pushed him to come up with an act. He never wanted to reveal who killed Laura Palmer, did he?
No, and he definitely shouldn't have. And the fact that he doesn't reveal anything at all in the Return suggests that that's actually for the best.
The return for me is one of my favourite things that's ever happened TV wise because
it's brilliant. Yeah, it's a very good show. I think I'm going to watch it again. I watched it and then I listened to like a whole bunch of podcasts going through and digging it in. Tried reading some of the Secret History and what's the other one? Final Dossier, is that what it's called?
Yeah, I've read the Secret History. I've not read the Dossier. I've got them both here, but
they're hefty tomes, aren't they? And they are canon in some sense because they are written by Frost.
T-shirt canon. None of that was about Bowie. I just wanted to explain the love of Twin Peaks a bit more. But yeah, I like that the return came back and did not do what everybody expected it. I'd been waiting for it to do for 25 years. It did the exact opposite. Just made it more complicated, more supernatural, and also like a lot of it wasn't set in Twin Peaks, which was but this was something about Bowie being like a normal character, like he's just on a job here, like there's nothing weird about this character at all. He's just this is if anything, this is one of our most normal scenes that we've ever looked at. But again, he's just a guy checking into a hotel, and I like that because that's the joke, isn't it? Or like the irony is that you've got Bowie and he's just at this point he's just an everyman doing his job. And given that it's the missing pieces, you already know that this is a reintroduction to this character as opposed to, like, you already know what's going to happen to this character when you see this. Yeah,
this is extra bits that Lynch decided not to put in, but it doesn't really flesh out anything at all other than we know he's looking for a person called Judy, and at that point before the return we didn't even know that meant anything. But
no, I think if it wasn't Bowie we would never have seen this scene, because I think this was an example of let's just release all the Bowie stuff we've got because it's Bowie.
Why not?
Yeah, whereas I think if this character had just been a different actor or not a big cast, it wouldn't have ever surfaced because, nothing happens. He just, other than the fact that he's got a letter from someone.
The whole point of a lot of Lynch's stuff there is that when you get a scene that's norm, because there's so much wacky stuff going on around, you don't ever see it as normal. You think, like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
What's going on in the background? And then the music changes from this accordion music to this kind of sinister music just randomly in the middle of scenes. And it's like Judy, even knowing what we know now, but even then you're like, this Judy is not going to be just a young lady on the run.
You're waiting for, considering, you know that he's about to disappear at some point.
Yeah, you're waiting for wacky shit to happen because it's a David Lynch thing.
It's a Bowie-Lynch production. And but at the same time, the fact that it's a missing pieces should have given away that nothing too wacky is going to happen, because if it was wacky enough, it would have just made it in.
Well, you say that, but we're going to come to one of the missing pieces clips later that is very wacky.
That's true.
And it involves David Bowie in that same hotel. But let's go to the main clip, which is clip 2, which is Fire Walk With Me. So Zoe, dressed still in a white suit, walks in somewhat shaken, prances almost into the room. It's some kind of office. Gordon Cole stands and shouts, as does Albert. Cole shouts from the back that does not look like Bowie. Philip, is that you? Cooper comes into the room dashing. Jeffries looks stunned. Cole shouts, Cooper, meet the long-lost Phillip Jeffries. Jeffrey grins, unsure. You might have heard of him from the academy. He said for the third time. There must be somewhat menacing. The music becomes somewhat menacing as Jeffries nervously rubs his hands. Well, I'm not going to talk about Judy, he says. An accent so unconvincing that David Bowie made David Lynch redub it with a different actor. In fact, we're not going to talk about Judy at all. He wags a Bowie finger. We're going to keep her out of it. CGI-looking Cooper turns to Lynch. Gordon, he says. I know, Coop, shouts Lynch. This goes on for a while. Tell me when you want to jump in.
I'll cut in there. I forgot that it was this version of this scene. Again, this is an interesting journey for us because we're basically going to be looking at the same scene 3 times in variety, and within the show, it's presented 3 different ways, as if it happened 3 different ways. Not that it's just 3 different cuts of 3 different takes. The accent, bringing Bowie in, and then then saying, also, let's have him be Southern. Let's have him be like deep Southern American for whatever reason. Maybe they just said to him, what accents can you do? And he said, well, I've just spent a bit of time in not Southern America, because that would be, then we're in Azaria territory, but like the bellhop that we see in a little while. Yeah, I don't know why they chose to give him that accent. I like every choice that Bowie makes in this scene makes him he looks like he's just been teleported through time and space. Even like the little walk, like the sort of skip walk on his way in, like he's been like sort of propelled into the room.
Well, of course, the thing is that he knows that that's happened to him, but nobody else does.
But does he? It seems like he doesn't know what's going on, in the sense that he knows something has happened to him, but it's not like he walks in and says, because it's Twin Peaks, he's not going to walk in and say, I've just been, like, what's happening to me? I've just been in X and now I'm in Y, and this and this and this. He walks in and talks about, he just speaks in riddles for like a couple of minutes, and we have heard of him from the Academy. My favourite, the best thing about the entire Bowie character is the line, I'm not going to talk about Judy, because all he does throughout the other than that one scene is talk about Judy. Every single thing about him is related to Judy.
Well, again, that Lynch probably finds that funny, isn't it? And his use of irony that we're not going to talk about Judy, but everything I do is about Judy, and I'm not going to tell you anything. And it also kind of makes it a bit disappointing that they went with the Jowday, not another name, because then it would have been a real kind of like dingle dangler to be like, okay, well, they keep talking about this Judy, she has to mean something, but no clues to get to at all in any of this as to who she is or what her relevance is.
It must have been infuriating at the time as well, for fans, especially again, like the series is wrapped up at this point and been off for like 2 years, and then they've announced that they're doing a movie, and then it comes out, oh, the movie is going to be set before. You're going to get no new information on the cliffhanger ending of, how's Annie, like the bad Cooper stuff. You're going to find out nothing about that. We're going to go backwards in time. Cooper's barely going to be in it, and it's going to be about a variety of people you kind of don't know, including David Bowie briefly. But it is well done, and I'll come up to that in a minute. The sort of setting up future stories. It's very well done in that you don't get a lot of TV shows where they don't have to retcon too much. Like, he's already thrown in, like, in the old stuff, the weird Judy, like the Judy stuff was there to be expanded on. They didn't have to completely retcon it, like, oh, it never got mentioned and all of a sudden it's like a prominent thing. Like, at least it's got roots in the Twin Peaks world before the return. I think Bowie's doing well, though. I think Bowie's playing displaced incredibly well. That you can just tell from his face that he has been displaced in time and space.
Have you ever seen The Man Who Fell to Earth?
I have not.
It's a great movie, and it's essentially what he does. He plays a man who literally has been displaced in time and space, and he wanders around a lot. The thing is, you say about people who are fans, but you got to remember that there were not many fans by the end of Twin Peaks season 2. I don't know if you know like what happened with it, but basically it became less and less and less popular until the last few episodes ended up not even being shown for like 3 months, and then all be put out at weird times. I was a fan, and I watched the first season, maybe season and a half, and I rewatched all of the first two seasons when just before I watched the return. I don't think I ever saw any episodes in the second half of that second season. None of it strikes any bells, and a lot of it is terrible once Lynch had checked out. But yeah, and I did watch Fire Walk with Me. I went to Pictures and watched it, and it was empty. Nobody gave a shit. So you just like people, there wasn't hordes of furious fans about this Judy thing, and these like, no one cared. It was like, Twin Peaks is nonsense, and it's really unpopular, and it's totally gone off. And now he's come back with this like prequel, which is no good.
Yes, I like the prequel in itself, but it was Lynch basically taking back control was the prominent reason for doing that film, not because there was a story to tell. It was him saying, like, no, because they got a lot of interference, didn't they? Like, they demanded that he wrapped up the Laura Palmer thing.
Yeah.
So he did. And then there was, 15 more episodes after that with just the rest of the town having, like, so soap style stories, but then every now and again someone would get turned into a doorknob.
Turning into doorknob, and then the Wyndham, what was his Wyndham Earl storyline was decent.
But again, that was kind of soapy.
Yeah, but it was like that was decent, but that was buried below like all of that. Who was the fucking dude who started trying to get Andy's wife, and there was all that big old thing going on, and he was like the department store fashion guy that somehow between him and Nadine becoming a high school wrestler, that was like 60% of the show. And then within this, they had that Wyndham Earl thing, which could have been as good and as mysterious as some of the earlier stuff, but they did it in quite a hacky way, like in a cheesier way.
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of like time interference in terms of like when the episodes were going to go out, especially after the Laura Palmer stuff. So they I know that the first thing that happens in Fire Walk with Me is that somebody smashes a TV to pieces. So I think that's Lynch's response to how they treated the end of Twin Peaks. But yeah, I imagine it's like definitely cult fans. Like there was definitely a selection of people who were ready for this film to come out, and then it came out and I can imagine it now. Like I can imagine the sort of anger I would feel if they said now, oh, we're going to do a Lost movie. Like now, it's been a lot longer in between like the time of Lost going off and Twin Peaks going off in terms of how quickly. But let's say like 3 years after Lost ended, they said we're going to do a Lost movie, and then they did, and it had nothing to do with Lost. I think I would be furious, but then the second or third time I watched it, I would probably end up falling for it, which is sort of exactly what happened with the last episode of The Return, actually. But yes, you may continue this clip.
You say nothing to do with Lost, but Fire Walk with Me is everything to do with the original series. I mean, it's basically the last 7 days of Laura Palmer. It's enriching the story,
but not answering any questions to that story.
No, but the thing is that if they made a Lost movie, you'd expect it to be some shitty mystery box film, because that's the trick that whatever his name is does.
Yeah, he does like a mystery box.
That's his thing, right? Whereas if you do like if someone said David Lynch making a Fire Walk with Me, you'd expect it to be a David Lynch movie.
Yeah, that is true. I will say, I saw in a Lost magazine recently from like 2003 or something, that not 2003 because that's before Lost, but it basically describe in the initial season of Lost, they describe it as Twin Peaks and The Simpsons. They're the sort of the two biggest inspirations for Lost, which it makes a lot of sense as to why I enjoy it.
Jeffrey points at Cooper's and who do you think this is there now? That's a good one. That's a good line that pays off many years later. The screen darkens and Albert's saying, oh, you suffered an old bump on the old noggin. And then the jumping man begins to appear on the screen. He's the guy who looks like The Weeknd. He's got a red suit on and a mask over his face, unlike The Weeknd, and it has a pointy nose. That special agent Dale Cooper, for God's sake, Jeffries, where the hell you been? Cut to pointy nose red suit man, and we go to the convenience store upstairs, and this is rich stuff. And the fact that this is in Fire Walk with Me, and just that this sets up pretty much everything. This is like if this is the lodge, it begins to make some sense, but we only know the lodge from being the Red Room.
Yeah, I don't know what we've seen in terms of like spaces, like multi-dimensional spaces. I can't remember. Like, is this the first introduction of the convenience store? I can't remember.
Yes, there's nothing in Twin Peaks about anything other than the lodge. And there's a White Lodge and the Black Lodge, and the assumption was that the Red Room is in the Black Lodge because that's where Cooper goes, and then the doppelganger comes out to him. And in the lodge, we've seen the man from another place, the little person who we find out later is the arm of Mike, and we've seen Bob in there, and then the others that we've seen there are doppelgangers, I think.
Yeah, it's a busy multiverse.
This is the thing: it's very rich. He's invented all of these characters, all of whom definitely could be explored in the mythos, but he hasn't really explored it, which is in itself very good, very good. And they're all, you think they're probably all symbolic of something as well as being actual monsters of some kind.
Yeah, I do like. I'm a much bigger fan of supernatural stuff that that looks like it fits into the world we live in. Like, this is a good example. Like, none of these creatures look too, like, they're all human-esque. Like, there's sort of like, there's deformities or like manipulations of a human image. It's not like, other than the arm with a sponge brain.
That's
they're all
later.
sort of,
That's the return. At this point, we haven't seen any of that stuff.
and that's literally because the guy quit. He fell out with Lynch, didn't he? The small.
He said some bad stuff about it.
Yeah, so he did not get to come back. No return for you. But no, this would fit into the return very well. This entire sequence, especially that is like a spiritual prequel to that episode 8, in that they're just going for it. Everything that I'm glad we get to see the scene properly, because it's Bowie isn't actually saying anything that's too revealing, but they phase out his dialogue as if we're not hearing something important. But he doesn't actually tell them anything particularly important. He tells them a couple of little things, but nothing like nothing that we don't hear him say because of the noise of the lodge entities matters.
Well, in the later versions, we get to hear exactly what he says.
Yeah, who do you think this is there or whatever? Is the that's got to be the most solid tie that there was a plan to bring it back, because that's either that or that was just supposed to be he doesn't know where he is or what's going on, so he's going to say some nonsense. But that to me is setting up that he knows what happens in the return, even if the plot of the return at this point hadn't been plotted or written. It still fits that he knew what was going on before it was even written.
There's literally no way that Lynch would just have him randomly say, "Do you know who that is right there?" Because he doesn't say, like, "Who's that? I don't recognize him." He says, "Do you know who that is?" He's pointing directly at him, saying, he's somebody different. And if you go back to the return, it's absolutely possible that Cooper, in some sense, in some way, it is not the real Cooper.
Yeah, to me, I always saw it as like he's been, because of wherever he is or whatever his space, his brain is, and he can also see the future. So he's basically saying, like, at that point, Cooper is Cooper, but at some point in the future, he's not going to be Cooper anymore. And Bowie knows that. He just doesn't know where he is. What year is this? So he doesn't, for all he knows, Cooper isn't Cooper, because that's the information he's seen in his time space or whatever. But at this point in real time, Cooper has not been bobbed. But that does happen in Twin Peaks. So that is it's not that much of a stretch. That Twin Peaks ends with Bob possessing Cooper, so it's not completely out of the blue. It could just be a reference to that. And again, like, because Bowie's all over the place, he already knows the information. That's, as I was saying, something's wrong before something's gone wrong, which is very interesting. You don't see that a lot unless not 25 years later. Like, you might see it, like, again, like Lost or another TV show that alludes to mystery will set something off and pay it off like the next season. But you can't find any other examples where it's been 25 years in real time before they give you any information or like knowledge on this, and it doesn't feel like a tacky retcon.
The difference with Lynch is he's fine with that, leaving that open. And that's pretty much unheard of. He has no intention of giving you an answer, and he doesn't even want to.
Exactly.
And nobody else has done. Nobody else has shows that does that.
No, there's that clip of him being interviewed, and they say something like, "The Elephant Man is your most spiritual film. Do you care to like comment on that?" And he just says no, which is great. I like that he's making you do the work. It's the same as, I don't know, especially that Return number 8, but it's sort of just, you could have every episode of Twin Peaks as a separate piece in a museum that people could analyze the way that you analyze a painting, and that you don't know why they painted certain things in certain places. Whereas, most TV shows will eventually spell out to you, which is, the right thing to do for most TV shows. It will tell you what's going on. Whereas this, he's very happily, like, he came back, and instead of answering the questions, like the whole Audrey thing, like, she's in like 4 scenes, and like the one that always sticks out to me is that woman with that woman in the car who's like beeping the horn, and she's just got a zombie with her.
Oh yeah.
And in hindsight, I don't know if that was just to reflect that, like, the world isn't right because it's been changed, so things are starting to fall apart, but they're starting to fall apart before it's actually happened in the show. This is like an example of that. Like, they're setting up something as if it's already happening, like way before it starts happening with Bowie.
There's a few things, right? It's like Kubrick. You know that he thinks about this stuff so much that you give him the benefit of the doubt. So when there's a zombie in the car, and in an earlier scene they talked about these kind of Chinese drug drugs that make coins disappear in the air or whatever is going on Balthazar Getty's character earlier. Like, there's enough stuff like that in that you'd say, okay, is this? And then there's a woman in the roadhouse who's got like all these sores all over her neck and stuff, and suggests that there's some kind of drugs thing going on or some illness or something.
Interesting. This is a bit of a similar casting situation. That girl with the rash is a singer. So when they released the cast list for The Return all at the same time, so you didn't know, it was just a list of like 100+ people. It didn't tell you how much they were going to be in it or whether it was a cameo or something. And this girl's name, I can't remember who it is, but I remember seeing it and thinking after like an episode or two, like, oh, she's going to perform in the Roadhouse like all these other performers. And then she was just a girl with a rash, which again, similar to Bowie, they brought Bowie in not as a performer, but as a actor.
And yet here, the 9 Inch Nails. That's some tiny bar in the middle of nowhere. The 9 Inch Nails have reformed.
We refer to them as the 9-inch nails as well, which is great.
We obviously are going to spend a long time on this scene, but I do want to talk about the convenience store itself, because he does say, I've been to one of their meetings. The meeting was a convenience store. I've been to one of their meetings. And then you cut to this convenience store. It's all in black and white, and it's wacky stuff. We've got the jumping man that I described earlier. You've got the arm in his red suit, and he's looking at some corn soup, and he says gambosia, which we find out later is what they eat as a source of like pain and suffering. And this is what the people in the convenience store eat, which would suggest they're all bad, malevolent creatures. We see the woodsman, which later come in and murder people in that radio station. And then there's obviously Bob's in there just hanging out, like the most evil creature that we experienced in the first Twin Peaks. He's just in there. Just hanging out.
This is sort of like in like a Suicide Squad, if you will, or something from like a comic book movie where all the villains have collected together. Like this is the villain's hideout basically. But I always took it as like when he says he's been to one of those meetings and all this stuff is happening, I thought it was the same as like the Cooper stuff. Like he's currently in that meeting. Like the meeting that he's attended is what's happening right now on screen. Like it's not like he's describing it and we as an audience are seeing it. It's as if like he's saying, I've attended that meeting, but it's happening. He's attending that meeting in real time as he's talking about it.
Well, again, that will come into the time stuff, or the parallel universes that people suggest is what happens when Cooper meets Diane, and then they do that sexy ritual and turn into Richard and Judy. And
we're not going to talk about Richard and Judy.
They get into the car and drive 500 miles and end up being exactly where they need to be. So parallel kind of universes and stuff, and all done through Lynch's particular wacky realm. So Bob's angry in there, the arms kind of
happy,
saying stuff about fella victim and with this ring I thee wed, and when you cut back to Bowie, he is kind of mumbling something about a ring. There's another person in there who they seem to refer to as the electrician, who just says electricity. And then we cut back to Bowie, and Bowie's in the office and he's screaming, and he's in this chair looking desperate, and we cut back a few times and things are going shaky, and then we cut to the blue sky. Actually, I think the same blue sky that we see near the trailer park where the souls are kind of disappearing, possibly. And then he's just gone. There's an empty chair. Yeah. So we're back to Gordon Cole's office, and it's a normal day. Bowie stumbled in and said some wacky stuff, and then he's sat in the chair, and then he's just gone. And Albert calls the front desk to see how Bowie's run away, and then the front desk says he was never here. Now, you know
that in other situations would be a very cheap line. In this situation, not. That thing of like, oh, I've just been talking to that little girl. Oh, she's been dead for 15 years.
Yeah,
it's that. But if that was done successfully, yeah, I always like the things that we're seeing from the lodge here. I always thought Bowie was also seeing in the chair, as it was like as he was trying to talk to Gordon and Albert. He's actually like that, yeah, with like the red room and the sky and the people saying like fella tell a victim, which is, they're basically saying get rid of him, aren't they? So that's why I think the lodge meeting is happening. Like they're aware of Bowie being in this lodge, but also in this FBI office at the same time. Like a two-way door. He can hear what the people in the lodge
like a regular door.
Like a door that works, yeah. Like a functioning door. They can also hear what Bowie's telling Gordon and Albert, so they're like, we got to put a stop to this. This is my trying to make it into a normal story, but that's them saying we're going to put a stop to this, get rid of him. So they do. And the ring is that Owl Cave ring or whatever.
I imagine so, right?
And that's got something to do with Chester Desmond, hasn't it? Like, don't they find like basically you put the ring on, you go to the lodge, don't you? Is how it seems to go. If you have the ring on when you die, you go to the lodge. But Bowie doesn't have the ring, and I think at this point they're aware of a ring, but they don't hear about it. Probably just because of his experience with this job in the FBI. But Gordon's response to Bowie having banished completely is very, very calm.
Well, he's the Blue Rose Task Force, right? So he's since the 70s or whatever. Cole's been like encountering stuff. So if you remember the woman at the beginning of Fire Walk Me, where Gordon Cole introduces Kiefer Sutherland and Chet Desmond to the dancing woman, who's she does an interpretive dance to explain what's going on.
She's great, and people also think she might be a lodge person.
It's a bit bold if she's a lodge person to just be there dancing at the whim of Gordon Cole.
Or just the sort of like a lodge translator, if you will.
There's something wacky going on, and it's kind of like the lodge to me is like you get these cartoon shows, and I think Adventure Time did it a little bit, but you get characters in that are not drawn in the style of the show.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? So like you go to the lodge and every character seems to be drawn in a different style. They don't seem to be from this show. It doesn't make sense. It's like it's a very interesting group of like characters but you like there's got to be something that causes certain characters to be in the lodge, and some of them just look like normal people.
Yeah, and this is what I like.
Some of them are much more bizarre.
This is why Twin Peaks works for what it is, and just sort of, if you're not into this, it's never going to work for you. But if Twin Peaks came out now, okay, if this was released now or not by Lynch, there would be like a desperation to do like a lodge prequel series where you get to know each and every lodge person and like why they're there and what, and that sort of, on some shows that would be great and it would work. But with this, like, if you like Twin Peaks, part of what you like is the fact that you're not going to get answers from the show.
Yeah, and the thing about The Return is, like you said, what made it better was that he was like, okay, I'm going to bring it back and I'm going to give you some bits of what you want, but I'm going to like give you way more bits that are not what you want, and also bring up a way more questions. So you're going to get like a little bit of what you want, but a whole lot of stuff you don't want.
That's why Lost didn't work in the way that it tried to emulate Twin Peaks. But Lost always, in the real world, like promotion and all that stuff, they always promised that they would answer the questions.
Yeah.
So they shot themselves in the foot. There was not, like, they could have easily finished that show without, they sort of only vaguely explain what a smoke monster is and blah, blah, blah. But they could have easily got away with ending that show with way less information having been given out if they themselves had stopped just saying, oh, we promise you by the end of this show you're going to understand everything.
Because I think they wanted to, as like I said, pretty much everybody else wants to explain and can't resist having explanations as to why everything. I mean, saying the Mordcast, it's like we have to explain everything.
I think a lot of that comes from me. There is a very there's a Lynch and Frost thing going on with the Mordcast where you're happy to not like the whole thing. Tatiana and the whale, like that, the cold open, like a family got like the hams got eaten by a whale, and then the next time they were just back in town, and it was I felt the need to explain to our like four listeners the gap of that story, but I think you would have been happy to just leave it.
Well, only because I have an answer in my own mind, and I think that's what Lynch is saying. He has an answer.
Yeah, Lynch knows.
Not that I'm as good as David Lynch. He got his own answer, right? And he might give you some hints at some point, but he also might not. So the fact is that if he's not, he wants you to kind of fill in those gaps.
His daughter is also a director, and she directed a lot of Walking Dead episodes, which is sort of kind of the opposite of Twin Peaks in that, they give you they over-explain what's going on. So that's interesting. interesting. Maybe that's a rebellion against
Maybe.
Lynch. But let's go back to the other David.
Book 3. Missing pieces again. So now we've got white suit Bowie once again stumbles into office. This time he walks to Gordon's desk and just power stamps. He sits tired. Where the hell have you been? Says Jeffries, says Lynch. I sure as hell wasn't going to tell you everything, but I got a lot to go on. But I'll tell you one little bitty thing, says Bowie, as he sits at the desk and he finger wags and he says, Judy, I'm positive about this. How interesting, says Albert sarcastically. I thought we were going to leave Judy out of this. Jeffries is unstable. They grab his arms to help him sit down. Jeffrey demands Cole. Jeffries, you've been gone damn near 2 years, says Cole. He reaches for Albert. It was a dream, says Bowie. We all live inside a dream. And Albert says, and it's raising pop toasties. Jeff, hell, God, baby, God now. I don't know what that means. I found something in Seattle at Judy's, menacing music. And then they sat quietly for hours, and I followed, says Bowie, head on desk. Bleached blonde moaning. The ring. Albert, I'll take that second mineral water, says Gordon Cole. Albert is unhappy and goes, Philip, let's calm down here and get this interesting story on paper. Cole reaches for the intercom. Hello? The lights start to switch on and off. Hello, Cooper, give me some good news. Cooper, the divide has gone. Mayday, mayday, mayday. Bowie looks up. He says, February 1989. We cut to Cole. He looks back. He's gone. What? Says Cooper.
Already see, this is just that scene without the lodge stuff played over it. Like, this is just, you just get to hear what Bowie told the others, like what he actually said. This is very, this sets up a lot of return stuff. Specifically, we live inside a dream, which I think has probably always been in the back of Lynch's head with Twin Peaks. Because that ultimately is what, when the return wraps up, you're in a lot of dream stuff. Or it's a way more dreamy environment. Like, they really amp that up towards the end. To the point where the whole last episode could just be a dream if that wasn't tacky. He said Judy 3 times, which is great.
He's saying Judy a lot, but he's not talking about her very much.
No, yeah. And it's weird that he says he found some in Seattle at Judy's, which is, it could just be a different reference altogether, because I'm only just now looking at that as he could mean somebody's house. Like, I always took that as a diner, maybe just because of the thing in there is a Judy's. That's the whole thing in the return finale, isn't it? The Coop / Bad Coop / Richard, or whatever he's called, goes to a diner called Judy's. So I thought this was him maybe implying he's visited that same world, as opposed to just, he didn't find something in this Seattle at Judy's. That to him means he was in this other place. And I think the whole underlying story of Bowie might basically, he almost successfully did what Cooper ends up doing, but he failed somewhere along the line, and we don't get to see his attempt. For all we know, there is a human female Judy who is a similar entity to Laura Palmer, like Bowie's Laura Palmer. And, he just sort of was unsuccessful, as maybe Cooper was unsuccessful. We don't know. But yeah, that line of hell, God, baby, God damn no is great, just because it's very ironically southern. And another, he vanishes in a different way as well here. He vanishes less painfully, and he just sort of, the last thing he realizes that he's traveled through time, because he was in the hotel, was 1987 or something in Buenos Aires, wasn't it? So he's just moved 2 years forward in time without, just in a split second. And then
Cole says you've been gone for 2 years. Yeah,
which he probably doesn't register in the second. It's just, this is him realizing, I've been gone for 2 years, and then he's gone. Either that, or it is like a projection. Like he was never there. It was just a projection from a lodge that he's trapped in.
But it's almost like Lynch has left so much of that open that he could use. Like, you've got tulpas, you've got doppelgangers, you've got time displaced people, you've got lodge entities. It's like just throwing these huge concepts out with the idea that maybe some of them will pop up. And so, when I said it before, I remember Neil Gaiman talking about, I think, the first issue of Sandman comic, which was kind of the first thing he wrote as a comic, and being so desperate and so afraid. I don't think it's what Lynch did, but he was so afraid that he might run out of ideas. that he just put so many of these seeds in the first couple of issues that he could pick up on any of them like later down the line if he ran out of things to do. And it does feel like Lynch could be doing something like that, to be like, oh, all these entities, all these words, all these ideas. But again, giving Lynch the benefit of the doubt, he was well in. He'd done many years at this point. He also totally could have sketched this out. And again, I think like with the transcendental meditation, which I've heard him talk, he does 20 or 30 minutes twice a day or whatever. So he's sitting there thinking and not thinking, having these ideas floating around his head for like hours every day. You just imagine that he's got all of these connections and ideas that underpin, and he's also happy that some of it makes sense and is connected and other stuff isn't really.
I think a lot of his ideas will come from actual dreams as well, just in the sense of the whole, we'll come back to it in the bonus stuff possibly, but that Monica Bellucci dream, I've always bought into the idea, or like the theory floating around that is a Gordon in that scene is actually just David Lynch.
Oh yeah, I always felt that because it just stands out so much.
Yeah, and like that entire scene is about her and him discussing, like him being the actual creator of, like he's not the creator of a TV show, but the universe that he is now part of is him. Sort of similar to like if we showed up in a cold open for like the spin-off sitcom, but within a dream, but we weren't characters, we were like the
definitely
people
happening in season 9.
Yes, and like we show up as we've created that world. We're not characters in it, but we are also characters in it, but we're kind of not aware that we created the world. So there's a whole sort of like the whole of Twin Peaks is sort of, you could read it as Lynch just saying like, no, this is just, they're sort of kind of aware that they're in my TV show and that the things that are happening to them are normal life things because I am creating them. And Bowie,
it's meta, isn't it? That who is the dreamer kind of idea is like, he's not daft. He knows that there's only one real way to interpret that. If he'd have had, it would have been interesting if he'd have had Cal McLaughlin sat there, and you were not sure whether it was actually Cal McLaughlin or Dale Cooper. That would have made it a little bit more obvious. But he kind of played the line where like, this could just be Gordon Cole having a dream about meeting Monica Bellucci, but it could also be David Lynch doing a meta thing, which is a little bit on the nose, but also Lynch isn't afraid of doing very obvious stuff sometimes.
Yeah, no, to me it's I'm just setting up that seed of Bowie here saying we live inside a dream is Bowie is essentially a return character who appears before the return. Like everything he alludes to pays off in a sense in the return. Like he's way ahead of us in terms of the story. Well, he would have been way more mysterious as well, which he obviously still is, but his character makes a lot more sense after the return.
Yes, but also his character in the return makes a lot less sense.
Yes. I think that's the trade-off, isn't it? It's like, okay, we'll kind of explain vaguely what happened to him in the past or like what his connections were, but we're still like, what's going on with him now is up to you to figure out, which is great.
So clip 4, or clip 3 again, whichever way you're counting, is now we are back in the hotel in Buenos Aires, and Bowie materializes out of thin air, screaming. Obviously, this transfer through time and space is not a pleasant experience, and there's a black shape burned on the wall behind him. A woman sees this, and she's kind of one of the maids, and she crawls across the floor and out of the way while the bellhop stands perplexed. His arms bent backwards, I noticed. Bowie doubles over and coughs and reaches out in a very overly dramatic way. What should I do, Mr. Bowie? Says the bellhop. Oh, Mr. Jeffries, the shit comes out of my ass. And he shakes his leg, I imagine, to try and get the clot of poop out of the bottom of his pants leg. We get back to Bowie's anguished face. Santa Maria, where did you go? Ayúdeme, he's shouting, which means help me.
I thought he was saying, are you demon? That makes more sense.
Apparently he's shouting ayúdeme, which is help me. I think it's in Spanish or Portuguese. Spanish, I think. It's all a bit much, I say. But it is also a brilliant scene, and I do understand why it was too dramatic, possibly for Firewalk with Me, but very much in keeping with the return. This scene would have fit perfectly into this return with a little bit of, you'd have had to done a slightly different camera work and lighting and stuff to make it fit. But this scene is totally a scene from the return.
Yeah, it's mental. This is the culmination of him being removed from the office. So this happens directly after that. I don't understand, full stop. I don't understand why he's now been sent back to. You'd imagine that when he was taken from the office, he was then taken somewhere completely new, but he was sent back to the hotel he was already in. But I don't know if this is just maybe how it works. Probably not, because you'd have more examples of this throughout the world. Like there'd be something in that dossier or something about seeing it happen. But it's like he's being pulled backwards through time, or like the experience he's already had, and it's causing him a great deal of pain. But or it's like a transitional, like he's been moved from one place to the other, and then he's gonna be, because he gets like, he doesn't actually vanish here, does he? Like, as far as we know, he gets left in Buenos Aires.
Yeah, this is the last we see of him, really. I mean, basically, if you put the three clips together, he's in the hotel. We assume that pretty soon after that, he zips forward 2 years to FBI HQ. In between, or maybe before, he's got something to do with Judy. Imagine, well, we don't know that story. And then he zips back to Buenos Aires, and we don't hear anything about him again until the return, when we meet him in the convenience store in a very different form.
Yeah, it's all a bit Lynchian, isn't it? Also, just that line, the bellhop being like delivering like an Only Fools and Horses, like a Faulty Towers kind of like bellhop. Oh, like I've shit myself. Just weird, sort of like.
And saying it in a very comedic way.
Yeah, like quite South Parky, and I've never thought of Lynch thinking at any point we should throw in a joke here to lighten the mood.
It's not a joke. It's ridiculous, real life ridiculous statements. I mean, if you look at stuff like Blue Velvet or Wild at Heart, has bits of that in. It's like just it's real world silliness.
Yeah, it is. The arms bending backwards is interesting. Maybe this might be a stretch, but maybe that hotel is part of the lodge. Maybe he's trapped in this sort of hotel, and that's his sort of lodge experience, and this entire sort of like that living the same day thing. Maybe he just goes to that bellhop every morning and gets that same note, and then this one particular time he got displaced,
right?
And then he just got sent back to that sort of an. But in my head, all we've looked at is completely linear to me so far. Like,
oh yeah,
he goes to the bellhop to get the letter, leaves that room, is immediately displaced and sent to the office, and then he's immediately displaced and sent back to the hotel here. So I'd say all this, the first three things we've looked at happen within the space of like 15 minutes.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, but it's never in play. That's the sort of cool, interesting thing. Like, we see the most for Cooper, but Bowie and Chester Desmond and Cooper himself, once they disappear, you don't see where they disappear to specifically. Like, there's some lodge stuff going on, but you don't know. Like, we still don't know where he went from here at all.
No.
It's implied just from the later stuff that this is the end of his physical form, maybe, and that's why the pain is coming in the scotching on the wall. He could have just, in this scene, completely burned up. We don't know, but I'm sticking with my idea that this hotel is his convenience store, maybe, and it's not Buenos Aires at all. It's just that's what he believes he's doing, and he's stuck in this sort of Judy time loop where he's trying to basically getting the same information every day, like a Groundhog Day, but instead of, which I think actually today is Groundhog Day.
Interesting.
Fun. And also less Bill Murray and the teacher from Glee. Glee is very dissimilar to Twin Peaks. You may continue.
I think it's a stretch that the hotel is his lodge, but there's definitely a story going on there that is deep. And if the movie had been his story instead of Chester Desmond's, probably would have been a lot more interesting. Or if they'd have weaved the two much closer together.
Yeah.
What happened to Kiefer Sutherland's character? Do we know that?
I can't remember it all. He was like the new agent, wasn't he? Replaced Chester Desmond. But no, I think it's bold to say that hotel idea is a stretch given what's about to come, though.
How about looking at some Phillip Jeffries media now? Because this is David Bowie playing the character, there's loads of it. Because, like, he's a pretty obscure character, but he's played by rock stars star, David Bowie.
Is he?
He is. Poor dead David Jones of London Town. Here's a good one. It's when he's all burned up from traveling through space and/or time. What do you make of that?
Very good, very beautiful. This is what I would call real art, in the sense of like real's the wrong word. Traditional would be more accurate, which is
Classical
Yeah.
art, like a Rembrandt, basically.
Exactly, an Alvarex, if you will. Which is nice because Twin Peaks is odd, so to have some straightforward art is nice.
Now,
There's
the art
something
itself is straightforward, but it is picturing a man in a white suit essentially on fire. And when we know he's also been traveling through dimensions and he's in extreme pain. So if you were to see this picture and not have seen Twin Peaks, you'd be like, hold on, is that David Bowie screaming and on fire?
David Bowie on fire. The banister, probably the least interesting part of the image, but the banister is very well done.
Very well rendered.
It is.
Impossible.
It looks like actual wood.
How about this?
No,
Follow the
very
other
good.
banister. Watch this. Follow the other banister. It's way off, innit?
Oh yeah, that's fine. That's probably intentional.
Very intentional.
He's bending time and space to his will.
Bending banisters as well. Oh, Mr. Bowie, I've shite myself.
The shit is coming out of my ass.
Oh, Ambassador, the shit you are spoiling us. Here's a follow-up from a different person, Andre Costa. So this is David Bowie on the stairs with the woodsman behind there. That's clever, isn't it? Because that doesn't happen. But you could imagine that's actually true, right? Because you can't see up the stairs, but I can imagine if you looked up the stairs, the woodsman were over there glaring at him.
Yeah, or like there is a balcony in the convenience store. It's exactly that, isn't there? Like with the stairs. So it is the thing of maybe Bowie is moving between both. And there is a thing sometimes, like, I don't know if this is a real thing or I'm just making it up now, but like it's easier to move between parallel things. So in Buenos Aires, it was easier to get him to a staircase in the convenience store. Like he moved to a similar item, in which he kind of did anyway, because he moved from a staircase to a lift, which is a modern staircase.
Where did he go when he vanished?
We have no idea. To a kettle. But I like the idea that this is where he went. That would make a lot of sense. Like, and also like he's facing the other way. So it's like this is what you can see from the other side of what's happening to Bowie.
That's what I mean. So it's like here, you got him facing up here, but if you were to flip around and look up, you could see that's a very clever image there by #Twin Peaks, #artwork by Andre Costa.
I also think that might be like a photoshopped actual like footage put together and then had an effect put over it rather than somebody's painted it.
No, I'll give you that. It looks like it's someone else's animation, but that scene does not exist. At no point does Phillip Jeffries meet the woodsman on camera, and we only see the woodsman briefly in Firewalk with Me in the convenience store, and they don't pop up again until I don't know when they pop up in the return. They appear before episode 8, right?
Yeah, I think so. You see one in a prison cell like vanish quite early on.
In Twin Peaks itself, right? There's one where he's in the cell.
Yeah.
Cells.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think that woodsman on the stairs is a scene. It's just not the scene it's just not related to the Bowie scene, but I think there are two different scenes like mashed together.
Really? I don't remember the woodsman on the stairs, but I'll give you that. So this is a picture by Helena Janek from 2018, quite late in the day, which is a pretty faithful rendering. I do find it amusing that David Bowie is always wearing these same clothes in all pictures. That's all we've ever seen him wearing. And it's not a standard FBI outfit.
It is not.
It's a faithful rendering of the scene inside the office just before Albert has to go and get the second bottle of water for Gordon. And D. Bowie is reaching out and saying his classic line, "We live inside a dream."
Which I think we've already touched on massively, but
6 or 7 times.
Yeah, that's the entire theme of the return. I like that. I'm always impressed when someone can use very few lines, and like there's very few lines on Cooper's face and Albert's face there, but they're like it's almost a photograph of them. It's that detailed.
These three are very good. Cole not so much, but these three, she's nailed them.
Yeah, they're exactly. And again, there's not a lot of detail gone into it, but she's somehow managed to make them look almost photographed.
Well done, Helena Janek.
You'll see you again in 25 seconds.
I am Vernon J. Pentecost, and this is the Judgmental Hour.
This is the water, and this is the wall.
Through the darkness of future past.
Drink home descend.
The magician longs to say.
The horse is the light of the eyes,
One chants out between two words.
and dark with it.
Fire, dark with night.
That was even metal.
We're not going to talk about D. Bowie again.
EBA.
Oh, Mr. Bowie, I've shit myself. Is that what he says? He says that, right?
Something like that.
Words to that effect.
But I think that what is about to come is probably one of the only Twin Peaks alterations. That's that and the arm being like a sponge tree. Like two of the only things that were changed because of real world events as opposed to a specific choice from Lynch. Like I think Lynch adapted to a situation here as opposed to like if David Bowie was still alive and wanted to be a part of the return. I'm not 100% sure they would have gone. I'm not saying they 100% wouldn't have gone down this road, but I think there would have been more Bowie. I don't think he would have been presented this way. I don't think he would have been presented human, but I don't think it would have been this different.
I totally think he would have still been the Kettle, but I do think there would have been some live Bowie things.
Maybe
but
like
given that Bowie looked so different by the time you get to 2016.
But I suppose they all do because it's been 25 years. They're all going to look 25 years different.
Yeah, I guess they would have had to explain that away. Clip 4. Bad Zaz is in a room full of flickering lights, flickering darkness. He is leather jacketed. Bad Zaz says to the kettle, a kettle with the steam ball coming out of it in black and white. Bad Coop says, 1989, you showed up to FBI headquarters in Philadelphia and said you met Judy. So you are Cooper, says Dalek voice Jeffries. Philip, why did you not want to talk about Judy? Who is Judy? Does Judy want something from me? Why don't you ask her yourself? Let me write it down for you. And then the kettle spits out 48551. Cooper takes some notes and he says, who is Judy? And he says, you've already met Judy. And the flickering light goes into Cooper's face. What do you mean I've met Judy? The phone rings. Cooper is in the flickering lights. The phone rings. Who is Judy? Cooper shouts again and again. He picks up the phone as the light crackles and the gas pumps are in flickering light.
Which is a very Bowie thing to do to somebody in this show.
What's that?
Yeah, this is mental. We've had the through line of character development or changes. We've sort of gone more extreme every time with our character casts or as a stage and screen, as did Jared. And then Cindy went from being a flight attendant to like a mysterious other. Harmony went from being a ditzy schoolgirl to a vampire. And now we have Phillip Jeffries going from being a human FBI agent to a huge sentient kettle who emits like steam information to people. And he's in the like a hotel area. It's like a motel car park, and they go like it's similar to it's in the same place as the lodge in terms of like dimensional and stuff, isn't it? And like the convenience store, but it's like a motel, and he's inside of this motel room, and that's where he now is. Which again, hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. Yeah, it's a great like transition. Like maybe there would have been more Bowie stuff, but yeah, the idea of like, oh well, we're gonna have to do something. Like we can't work with Bowie for this Phillip Jeffries stuff, but we need that character back. How about a giant kettle in a just dislodged room?
Apparently, David Lynch didn't tell Bowie about the kettle thing, even though Bowie was. Even though the return had started being prepped before Bowie passed away. So we saw the convenience store. He's in there, and clip 5, same room, dark. Now we have real Cooper, not a bad Cooper. And Mike's there. And the Bowie kettle is pumping steam. Please be specific, he says. Mike grimaces. Oh, we didn't really talk about the last clip, did we? Like, Bad Coop is shouting.
Oh, yeah. We can bunch these two together if you want, because they sort of work as a two-hander anyway.
They do, and I guess we don't really know very much other than Bad Coop is shouting at Bowie Kettle, who says, you've already met Judy. And Bad Coop is saying, like, who is she?
The vague context is sort of, they've mentioned in the return return now, like that was like episode 12 or something. They've mentioned Phillip Jeffries a few times, like Bad Zaz Duck Soup has been in contact with Phil, who he thought was Phillip Jeffries for like a couple of episodes, and he realised it wasn't, and he didn't know who it was. And I don't think they ever reveal who it was. But so then he goes to find the real Phillip Jeffries, and then he finds him, and he's like this. But it also implies that Bad Coop isn't like a doppelganger. He is just, there's sort of that thing of like Cooper got split into like good and bad with Dougie and Bad Coop, and then Real Coop, who is a combination of both of them, is like the real one. But this implies that Bad Cooper remembers that scene where Bowie says, "Who do you think this is?" There, like that is the same Cooper that we're seeing now, which is why Bowie says that, which is quite on the nose, really, or on the spout.
And he does say, "Oh, so you are the real Coop," which does answer that question. It's like, all right, so we've got tulpas, we've got doppelgangers, and then we've just got people who are split.
Yeah, like this seems to be everything that Bad Cooper is doing. Real Cooper has the capabilities of doing just the good things, stop him from being that person. So it's not necessarily just, this is his evil clone.
I saw the theory that the good Coop was very limited in his ways, not the Dougie so much, but he's very limited. Because he's disjointed from his bad part, which is, if that is true, that's a pretty classical idea, isn't it? If you need the bad part and the good part of you if you want to be whole. If you're either of those two things, then you're missing the yin yang kind of thing.
Yeah, it's also just that sort of darkness of humanity. Like, without, what would he have done without the morality side of him? Even the stuff with Audrey, like he won't have a relationship with Audrey because of his job and because of her age and stuff in the series. Then he ends up sort of fathering a child after the return, so that implies that the Bad Coop is doing things that now that he doesn't have the moral cues, he's picking up on the stuff from the past that he is, he's going back and retconning himself, but in an evil way, basically. Which
Lynch probably does well not to dig in too much and explain too much, because it is potentially a very cheesy idea. There's a badness. There's a badness in you, and if that badness can exist by itself, and that would be really bad. That would be you without your morals and your soul. And there's a goodness.
You'd be some kind of monster of black smoke, if you will.
Yes. So then we get to the same room where real Coop, good Coop, and Mike are there. Now that he's emerged. And of course, this is, I guess, what most people came to think of as the return. The return mostly refers to Cooper returning to Twin Peaks. And if you simplify the story and take the kind of parallel dimensions and all of the time loops that occur in the last few episodes, it's a relatively straightforward, linear thing of Cooper coming back from being submerged in the Dougie Jones character to getting back to where he once was, and then wrapping up the Laura Palmer murder properly.
Yeah, it's a nice way to get.
By the way, if you're still listening, the spoilers for all of Twin Peaks and probably every TV show you've ever seen.
But if you're a true Twin Peaks fan, you'll have started it around here and then just pick random, listen to 5 minutes and then find a different 5 minutes and listen to that.
We are going to talk about spoilers.
I might just cut it together like that, where none of what we're saying makes. I might do a Lynch edition where none of what we're saying makes any sense. By might, I mean will.
I like that. There should definitely be parallel stories and time loops in it as well.
Yes, this is definitely our most straightforward scene out of this entire thing. He's just giving out information.
Yeah, but the context is we don't know what. There's so many mysteries to Bad Zaz of you've already met Judy, and Coop's I haven't. Who is she?
Yeah, that's an odd one. That's the phone. People have also speculated that the phone ringing that was just Judy. If you just stopped ignoring the phone and screaming at Bowie, Judy would have let herself, because she's sort of at this point letting herself or letting itself be known. So there's that sort of idea that was Judy messing with him. But now I think that's where you can sort of tell that Bowie isn't just a kettle. He's still Phillip Jeffries is still sort of a person with moral choices. He chooses to kind of help who he sees as good Cooper or real Cooper way more than bad Cooper. Like, he can physically move people through time and space, it seems now.
Okay.
He is just, I feel like he's a soul trapped inside of that kettle, and that steam is sort of himself. And he can, because of his experiences, kind of manipulate it and use it. Because he moves Cooper and Mike in this scene, like, he completely moves them through time and space. So he could have done that for Bad Cooper. Could have sent them directly to where Judy was, but he chooses to intentionally be cryptic. Like, you've already met Judy. When? I'm not going to tell you when. Like, I don't want to help you really. Like, I've helped you as much as I'm intending on helping you. Whereas here he's just like, yeah, it was this time and date. Sure, I'll send you there right now. Go into the past.
We haven't mentioned that bit yet, have we? We haven't explained clip 5. So we're in the same room, which is good. It's all in keeping. It's all in keeping with the idea of this show. Real Cooper and Mike are there. The Bowie kettle is pumping steam, and there's some suggestion that it's not the kettle that is Bowie, but maybe the light ball. Please be specific, Jeffries says. Mike grimaces and Cooper. The date, February 23rd, 1989. Cut to kettle still steaming. I'll find it for you. It's slippery in here. It's good to see you again, Cooper. We cut to Cooper and Mike back to Hefrest, back to the FBI headquarters. Say hello to Gordon if you see him. You remember the back to Jeffries, it says. We know about this. We clip back forward between Mike and Cooper and Jeffries. It says, say hello to Gordon if you see him. He'll remember the unofficial version. We zoom in on Cooper's face. There may be someone. Did you ask me this? The steam seems to be some sort of throbbing as the owl sign comes out from the ring, which turns into a double diamond, which then turns into an 8/infinity with a tiny little bit cut out of it. There it is. You can go in now, Cooper. And then Mike says electricity, and there's a whole bunch of fast jumps and stuff. And yes, the unofficial version is a line that if you read any of the Twin Peaks stuff, that comes back again and again and again.
Yeah, this is his most useful and most linear.
Hold on, he says he'll remember the official version, not the unofficial.
No, he does say the unofficial.
Oh no, you're right. Yes, he does.
It seems like it's slippery in here. To me, implies that he is inside the kettle somehow, but he does not have any sort of tangible form to. Like, I imagine.
There's only one. We'll just check. Why would she not go? Just check. Just ask how many donuts she bought. There's one left. Just ask how many donuts she bought, please. Why? Just say donut check. I ate one, yeah. How many's left? How many did she buy? Why did she buy 3, not 4? I said, oh, well, then you can have that. That's fine. Donut check over.
Complete.
Please continue.
Yeah, I can't think of an example in another TV show, but it's like I feel like somebody Lodge-wise or somebody FBI-wise who works within the Blue Rose world built this kettle for him to contain him, because as a means of helping him survive, because I feel like he wouldn't be able to exist outside. I think he's just atoms basically, and inside this kettle he can sort of retain a form. It's weird that he says it's good to see you again, considering he's met him like twice.
But that also complicates things in the sense that he says to the bad Coop, like, oh, you are the real Coop. But then when he meets the real Coop, he says it's good to see you again, as if he knows that this is the actual real Coop, and he's different from the bad Coop. Yeah,
which again is strange because they've never, other than the scene where he comes into the office and then disappears, they've never met. Like, he makes a point of saying this is the long lost Phillip Jeffries. You may have heard of him from the Academy. They've never actually, like, why is it good to see him again? You've never spent you didn't know him. Is he just sort of saying it in a sense that, like, I can tell this is the real you as opposed to the last time you were here? But why would he? If he knows a sort of different, it was a different entity. It's not the same. Like, it's not like they've reformed into one Cooper. So yeah, it's just odd. And then he ruins it completely for himself by saying that thing, that there may be someone, did you ask me this? Just to leave it a bit more open-ended than, like, that to me sounds like he is, again, within this kettle, moving throughout time and space himself. So maybe I sort of looked into it to see if it would work, but it didn't. Where I took the bad Cooper's questions and tried to see if the answers that he gave to good Cooper in this scene matched up.
Oh yeah.
But like, because there's sort of like, did you ask me this matched up with him saying who is Judy a second time in the bad one, but other than that, it didn't really correlate.
Yeah. And then also he doesn't really give much at all to to good Coop. He just
No.
basically says, like, I'm going to help you out, and he gives him that date. What is the relevance of that date, February 23rd, 1989?
I think it's Laura Palmer's death.
Okay.
I think that's where he sends him, doesn't he? He sends him back to like change things, which again is a bit rebellious considering everything. I think at this point he's probably just done with the rules, considering he's a kettle. Like, he probably, as a Blue Rose task force member, knows that it's not a good idea to send someone back in time to alter history. But at this point he's a kettle, so he just doesn't care.
Yeah, the thing is that I don't know. People have dug in, but I don't know any clues that suggest what he is inside that kettle and what the kettle is. But the black and white, I mean, obviously he's inside the lodge, but there would be some suggestions that, he's now some kind of lodge entity. And is that might give some clues as to why all of those people become lodge entities, because there is a suggestion that the woodsmen are a result of the same fire that ended up with the log lady's husband becoming a log.
Yes. Sponsor race, contender, front runner.
What's this idea of the owl sign that becomes a double diamond, then becomes the 8 with a bit cut out?
The owl sign is it like the diamond with like the horns?
Yes.
I believe that is Judy. That is what I'm going off the dossier stuff here. It's like a Native American symbol for evil. So that was their explanation of Judy. That's how they saw Judy. I don't think it is an owl. It just looks like an owl, which is why they got the association. But
weirdly enough, I was watching something the other week about the goddess Lilith, which is a very old Babylonian goddess of hell, who has then become Athena and others, and she was goddess of the night, and she hunted for the souls of men, and she was represented as an owl. So I mean, I'm pretty sure Lynch knew that stuff.
Yeah, it's likely, and it's likely that there's a lot more Native American folklore in that final dossier than I assumed there was going to be. So it's that's what that represents within Twin Peaks, or within that's what I think Bowie is like the Judy thing representing whatever the evil end. Like, that's what they called Judy. That little symbol is what the word or thing for Judy was.
All right, okay. Like, you know that, or is that what?
Yeah, no, I'm like 99% confident that's like an in-show thing.
I'm asking Chatbot if the owl symbol is Lilith and Judy. Chatbot says the owl goddess in Twin Peaks is not Lilith Judy. The show features a mysterious entity known as the Arm, which takes the form of an owl and is associated with the supernatural events. I'm not going any further with that because that's nonsense.
Yeah, that doesn't happen, I don't think. Or if it does, I missed that completely. And Chatbot has just revealed that to me. I don't remember the Arm being able to be a sentient owl.
But clearly, at some point, we are going to do a Twin Peaks
two
podcast.
Things that we could mention before we move.
Very Twin Peaks, isn't it?
Yes, almost certainly. We haven't mentioned that it's no longer Bowie. He's doing an impression, but I believe that Bowie got to approve the voice.
Well, you know that Bowie got it redubbed. Let's move on to the unofficial version, because this is chopping up real bad. Yeah, very Twin Peaksy.
I'll preface this with saying this is everything put together in the sense that Twin Peaks is they're never just alternate takes. Like, all three of these scenes are sort of both of the versions of these scenes are intentionally different, and the unofficial version is him saying because Cooper changed time with the Laura Palmer thing, that's why there are unofficial versions to things, even though that was before, actually. So I don't know, but the
unofficial version. What clip were we on?
I think we'd finished the clips, haven't we?
Yeah,
we're up to the unofficial.
What about the infinity sign with a little bit cut out? What's that all about?
Oh, yeah, that's Judy.
Really?
That's like an old ancient symbol for Judy.
Jowdy.
That's how they used to. Yeah, I think it's like a Native American thing within Twin Peaks. I don't know if it represents evil, I believe. Like the diamond with horns.
Oh, Jowdy. I think Adult Swim should pull a David Lynch when he couldn't get the two actors back for Twin Peaks, The Return. He should turn Rick into a psychic tree and Morty into a giant teapot.
That would be a good idea. It would be better than whatever they're going to do.
Rusty Joylands. Aren't they going to just do all chatbot?
Hopefully.
100% chatbot, like that Seinfeld thing.
Azaria.
The unofficial version. So Gordon Cole is sat at a table, having a chat with Monica Bellucci. Cole looks back. I saw myself from long ago, and he peers back into the office, and once again we go back to the same clip. Who do you think this is? Cooper emerges from lift. Now this is a very mysterious thing. Cooper emerges from the lift. Cooper emerges from the lift. He stares at the security camera.
Jeffries.
And then while Cooper is staring at the security camera, Jeffries emerges from the same lift. Cooper then leaves the corridor as Jeffries walks into the corridor. And then we cut back and Cooper is looking at the camera again in the corridor as Jeffries walks past him. Cooper now is in Gordon's office. He runs in short of breath and looks at the camera, and then Jeffries once again walks down the corridor and then enters Gordon's office.
Yeah,
damn, I hadn't remembered that. That is really something really interesting to think about.
Screams Lynch. Yeah, I like this because this is just different takes that have been used, but they've collaborated into the story where it's there's two different versions, because I think essentially what Cooper does in the second to last episode sort of has a ripple through time, and that's one of them, in that this particular event happened in two different ways depending on I don't even know how they would remember the other version. I think Bowie just has access to all versions of everything in his kettle, so that's what he means by the unofficial version.
It's very slippery in here.
It is.
Time and space cannot be held onto.
Yes, I believe that is the case. He's not tangible enough.
Not
Cooper
fungible.
Walking past, yes, NTTs. Him walking past the other Cooper, it seems to me like another Dark Zaz or Dark Cooper reference, or the fact that he's split into two. Not necessarily that it's like, it kind of looks like time travel at first, doesn't it? Like Cooper's still there, but I think it was some kind of apparition. And again, we're dealing with two Coopers, which is the first idea of that we're seeing in Twin Peaks, the two Cooper thing, which becomes very prominent.
Yeah.
But his walks, this is basically, so far it's almost exactly the same from Jeffrey's point of view. Bowie's not done anything different in those two takes, really. Just in one of them, they decided to not have Bad Coop for some reason, and one of them they decided to show him.
You don't really think it's Bad Coop, though, do you?
I think it's supposed to be a second Cooper.
Really? What makes you think that?
Just the whole, who do you think that is there? The whole thing, if there was no other two Coopers references in this scene, it wouldn't really make sense, but I think it's supposed to sort of, again, allude to that thing of, who is this? Like, is there more than one person in here?
I'll give you that.
So that's what I think. I never
It's fun.
know it is.
I'd love to do a Twin Peaks podcast. Just talk about this all the time.
Yes, that will probably happen.
I think so.
Excuse me.
What's happening here then, do you think? Because so Jeffries is basically slipping between dimensions rather than traveling in time. That, because if you go to the end of the last couple of episodes in The Return, spoiler, where there is a very heavy suggestion that they're slipping in between parallel universes. Wow. Is this the same thing?
No, I think it's sort of maybe, but it seems more ironically straightforward than that. He's definitely traveling through time because he misses 2 years.
Yeah.
He has traveled through space. I think I've never considered the idea that this is sort of, it could be like a reverse version of what happens to Cooper and Diane at the end, where they go to another universe. Maybe this Phillip Jeffries isn't the correct Phillip Jeffries, and he himself has traveled to this dimension.
I thought he was just existing in several dimensions, and that's what I got. Like, he was kind of like a ghost in that corridor scene. To him, he's just walking in the corridor, but to Cooper, he doesn't see him, and then he looks back. Because that's when you ever heard Grant Morrison talking about like Flatland and this idea of like, if you're a 4-dimensional creature, you could see all of time and space as like a big long sausage, because you can see, time as well as the other 3 dimensions, or something just like he's just slipping on purpose or by accident between. So like he's visible when he comes into the office, but prior to that, he can walk straight past Cooper and he's not visible.
Yeah, it is. I sort both see that. I feel like it's more whatever's happening to him is clearly against his will, though. So I feel like he might have got too close to some Judy stuff, and this is why the lodge people. I assume that what's happening to him is because of the lodge people, specifically because he says like take a victim or whatever. But Bowie is already time traveling prior to that.
See, that's the thing with Lynch. If you're going to give him the credit that he's thought of all these things, he's just bonkers because he's not explaining any of them. Also, you've got time travel and doppelgangers. And you got time travel and doppelgangers and tulpas and magic rituals and entities all kind of just existing as if like they're all just part of the world. And we're not going to tell you when any of them pop up because it's just like we wouldn't tell you if a car was driving down the street or if it rained. So we're not going to tell you when someone just moves between dimensions or is somehow possessed by a malevolent eternal entity.
Yeah, Twin Peaks would have less of an air to it if we knew the answers to the questions we're asking right now.
Yes, it would. So, damn, I hadn't remembered that. Now, that is something really interesting to think about, said Gordon Cole. How about looking at some Phillip Jeffries media? Now, this one is the Justin Bieber animation where it's an old-timey kind of Metro Goldwyn Mayer style, Merry Melodies style cartoon in with Jeffries as a straight up teapot, where he kind of redrew the scene from wherever they were outside the convenience store. You've seen this video, right?
I have. I had no idea Justin Bieber was such a big Twin Peaks fan.
Hey, he's a twin believer.
Yes, wonderful. Pelipers. Great video. Fun little. It fits that could have just been in Twin Peaks for me. It's a little bit cartoony. It's a little bit childlike in the sense that Twin Peaks doesn't have a lot of like whimsy.
I think it's too much.
It's too joyful.
It's too joyful. If see the Loki TV show, they did that. They cut away to that clock, that missed minutes thing, which which worked because of the lightness. I don't think this would be acceptable in an actual David Lynch thing.
I agree. I wholeheartedly go back on what I just said.
So here's by Unlovely Frankenstein, where they've reimagined a book written on David Bowie's adventures in Buenos Aires. David Lynch, codenamed Judy, in which Bowie, wearing a different outfit, I'll have you know, has a monkey on his shoulder. And Judy is portrayed as a young woman with a black hat, I imagine. And the little sign of the Judy. What is this sign? The Judy, the owl, kind of
that's the same sign as the diamond with the horns. Basically, it's just circular. It's the same Judy sort of representation.
And the blurb says, "Argentina's Queen of Darkness taunts the Blue Rose Task Force."
That makes it sounds like that's about Phillip Jeffries, which I wish that's how when he'd walked into the room, if Gordon Cole said, "That's Phillip Jeffries, Argentina's Queen of Darkness," you might remember him from the Academy. It would have been better.
I don't know if I'm going to buy that one, but I'll let it slide.
I like it. Does he ever have a monkey? Is there a monkey in Twin Peaks? A monkey feels like it would fit directly into Twin Peaks, that someone would have a monkey on the shoulder.
There's a screeching monkey somewhere in it. There is a screaming monkey somewhere in Fire Walks With Me, right?
You'd assume so, given that that can't just be an artist's choice. There has to be a monkey reason.
No, there is. There is somewhere. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yeah. Pierre's mask, the Dutchman's face.
And then there's a video, I think, where Lynch is talking to the monkey. Or maybe that's just the scene. So, yeah, I think there's an idea that Judy's in. I don't know.
I was going to say, there's an idea that I know that Judy and Sarah Palmer are linked quite often, but then it's also thought that she might just be a different evil entity with a big smiley face under her face.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? You wouldn't put it past Lynch to just throw in another one. Oh, no, that's just another one. Like,
yeah,
hold on. We've got Bob. Yeah, but he's just one of them. What about the man from another place and Jaude and the woodsman and Phillip Jeffries in his kettle and is like, what about the glowing face behind? Oh, yeah, that's a different thing together.
Yeah, sort of like Pokemon.
Sort of like Pokemon. What about this one? This is cool.
Yeah, that's what he was going for. Yeah, it's weird that I never considered it would make a lot of sense, but I never considered Jeffries being taken to the lodge as a thing, or the Red Room specifically, which is in the Black Lodge.
We believe it's in the Black Lodge, right? But that would
I
make
always think
sense
the
because
White Lodge seems to be black and white themed things, doesn't it? Like the fireman and that bell
but
that
also
rings.
the convenience store is in black and white,
That's true.
which is assumed to also be the lodge or part of the lodge.
Yeah, or just a transport pod, maybe. Yeah, this picture's nice though.
It is.
It seems like I like the idea of the curtains in that lodge seem to work as time travel, or like general travel
Oh yeah.
means. Like there's plenty of times where the curtain, like so that to me looks like he's looking at the length of the curtain implies that he can sort of go anywhere, whereas other people it's quite limited. Like they get shown a specific bit of curtain to go through usually. Like Mike
Oh, yeah.
will usually hobble around and say a poem and then use his good arm that is still attached to him and not sentient to like open a curtain to somewhere. Whereas this looks like Bowie has his pick of the litter, shall we say. Good shadow.
Good shadow.
Again,
I think it's well done. It's the idea of the Red Room, the White Lodge, the Black Lodge, sorry, only appears certain times, right? So the trees were. Was it the ring of sycamore trees where Cooper originally went in? That's not there all the time, is it?
No, the island moves through time and space.
Exactly. Yeah. It's what we in the biz call a cop-out. But anyway, this is if you saw this as like a video, like a movie poster, I'd be intrigued.
Yes, especially now in 2023.
Especially. Got this one, The Power of Gus. It's just a fairly faithful charcoal collage, maybe even rendering of Jeffries' kettle with his ball of light coming out, sentient ball coming out, and
yeah, it's nice.
It's nice.
I like that you can sort of see more of the room. It's very, very dark within the episode. You can essentially just see the kettle. There could be anything going on behind him, basically, in that room.
Really, could be.
Is the
It's Kafka-esque and maybe Escher almost, but it won't spend too much time. Like I say again, it's fairly faithful. But this, the penultimate one from Tom Pick, is very nice. I'm not really sure what it means. You'll have to explain it to me. Other than it looks like Bowie's head that has been kind of like chopped, revealing the rings of a tree. But then there's something else going on here.
Yeah, this is very good. First of all, the actual image of Bowie is very, very good.
Very good indeed.
Of Jeffries, should we say?
Well,
I also
Tom
like
Pick.
the hair kind of turns into the tree lines, which is very cool. And also it's sort of an optical illusion. Like you can look at it like the tree image or like the tree line part of the image sort of moves if you look at it in different ways, which is very, very Jeffries.
Very Jeffries. DJ.
Don't know what the ball is, but Bob came out of one of those things.
Yeah, is it not that ball?
It could be a sentient kettle ball, but yeah, I saw it as when Judy throws up like life, because Judy is supposed to be it's implied that in that part 8 when that sort of white creation, she's called the mother sometimes as well, though I think.
Yes.
She like regurgitates Bob, and he looks like the circle that's in this. But I think if they were going for that, they would have. You can see Bob inside the circle, so they probably would have just added that to the image if that's what they were going for.
I think so.
It's great.
This is a great poster. I would be very happy to have that poster on my wall.
Yes, it implies that, if the ball represents Judy, it's at the center of his, I would say brain, but it's in his cheek.
It's actually in his nose, in his nasal cavity.
We're not going to smell about Judy.
No. And the very last one, yet another fake book. This one a little bit more Bowie. I'd say more Bowie than Jeffries, but it's called The Blue Rose in Berlin, a Phillip Jeffries mystery. And he's just straight up wearing Bowie's kind of like Berlin outfit with his long black trench coat and his kind of foppish hair. And there is a Black Widow style woman in the background, but
she looks like the woman we're on about before, the dancing runway lady.
Oh yeah,
just her arm positioning looks like she's doing this like chicken dance.
The backwards.
Strange. I like that we're in Berlin now. That it's a sequel or like an additional. It's not connected to the actual. It's connected more to Bowie story than to Twin Peaks.
No, it is.
And I like that it's a side story. That all we know about Jeffries is this one Buenos Aires mission. It's nice to imagine his prior missions to that could have been equally as wacky, just didn't end with his dissipation.
Yeah.
He does sort of look like Harry Styles playing Doctor Who in that picture, though.
A little bit.
Which is fine. Chatbots always experiencing exceptionally high demands.
Well, this is a very popular thing, right? Tell me about Phillip Jeffries as chatbot. Phillip Jeffries is a character in a television show, Twin Peaks. Is a former FBI agent who disappears while investigating a case in South America and reappears in strange and mysterious circumstances. He is known for his cryptic and strange behaviors, and his reappearances has a significant impact on the plot. Where did he go when he vanished, chatbot?
I'm sorry, I can't speculate.
The exact circumstances, but it is implied he may have encountered something supernaturally or otherwise.
It is implied it was supernatural, as he naturally can't teleport through time and space.
Yes, I'm going to keep digging in and see if I can get chatbot to predict or suggest where he might have gone. If he does, then it will appear at the end of this episode.
Yes, ask him why he became a kettle.
Phillip Jeffries transformed into a kettle in Twin Peaks movie Fire Walk With Me. The transformation is not fully explained and is part of the series' trademark mysterious and surreal imagery. The exact meaning is open to interpretation.
No, we'll get him.
We'll get him.
It's 7:06. Do you know where your wind chimes are? It's 7:06. Do you know where your wind chimes are? I am Vernon J. Chatbot, and this is the Phillip Jeffries Explanation Hour. This is the water, and this is the well. Drink full and descend. The horse is the white of the eyes, and dark within. Through the darkness of future past, the magician longs to see one chance out between two worlds. Fire, walk with me.
Phillip Jeffries is a fictional character in the television series Twin Peaks, created by David Lynch and Mark Frost. He is portrayed by actor David Bowie in the film Twin Peaks, Fire Walk With Me. Jeffries is a former FBI agent who went missing and reappears in the story as a spectral figure who communicates cryptic messages. He is associated with the supernatural and mystical elements of the series, and his role in the overarching narrative is shrouded in mystery. Phillip Jeffries is a complex and enigmatic character in the world of Twin Peaks. He first appears in the series as a well-respected and high-ranking member of the FBI, but he goes missing after a trip to Buenos Aires and is presumed dead. However, in a later appearance, Jeffries turns up as a ghostly figure, speaking in a fragmented and confusing manner, and making references to supernatural entities and events. Jeffries is known for his strange behavior and cryptic utterances, and his appearance often adds to the surreal and mysterious atmosphere of the series. Phillip Jeffries appears in the third season of Twin Peaks, titled Twin Peaks: The Return. In this iteration of the series, Jeffries makes a cameo appearance in one of the most surreal and abstract sequences of the entire show. He is portrayed as a giant metal teapot in a dreamlike space, from which he communicates with Agent Dale Cooper and others in a cryptic and disjointed manner. The scene is highly symbolic and open to interpretation, but it furthers the sense of mystery and supernatural elements that are hallmarks of Twin Peaks. His appearance in The Return is brief, but it has a significant impact on the series, as it raises questions about the nature of reality, time, and the interconnectedness of the characters and events in the Twin Peaks universe. His exact purpose and motivations are not fully explained, and the character remains somewhat of a puzzle, contributing to the show's overarching themes of the supernatural and the unknown. While Phillip Jeffries is certainly a unique and memorable character, his role in the larger story of Twin Peaks remains a subject of debate and speculation among fans and followers of the series. And now an exclusive piece of fiction from me, Vernon J. Chatbot, read by our special celebrity guest, Vandy Newton.
Phillip Jeffries had been hot on the trail of Axel Montalban, a notorious criminal known for his cunning and brutality. Jeffries had been assigned to bring Montalban to justice and was determined to succeed where others had failed. For months, Jeffries chased leads and gathered intelligence on Montalban's whereabouts. Finally, a reliable source informed him that Montalban was hiding out in Buenos Aires. Jeffries quickly made the journey to Buenos Aires, eager to bring an end to this case. Upon arriving in Buenos Aires, Jeffries discovered that Montalban had been using the city as a base for his illegal operations. Jeffries was relentless in his pursuit, using all of his skills and expertise to track down the criminal. However, Montalban proved to be a formidable opponent, always one step ahead of Jeffries. Despite the challenges, Jeffries refused to give up and continued his investigation. One fateful night, while pursuing a lead, Jeffries was ambushed by Montaburn's men. In the ensuing struggle, Jeffries was shot and presumed dead. However, rumors began to circulate that he had survived and was in hiding, waiting for the right moment to strike back at Montabern. Phillip Jeffries checked into his hotel room in Buenos Aires, exhausted from his investigation into the notorious criminal, Axel Montabern. As he settled into his room, he noticed a letter waiting for him on the dresser. It was addressed simply to Philip. Curious, Jeffries opened the letter and began to read. As he read the strange and cryptic words, he felt a strange presence invade his body. He felt his mind being consumed by a powerful force that was not of this world. Phillip Jeffries was a brilliant FBI agent with a passion for solving the toughest cases. However, he was always searching for something more, a deeper understanding of the world and the mysteries that lay beyond. One day, he stumbled upon a strange, ancient text that hinted at the existence of a powerful and mysterious entity known only as Judy. Intrigued, Jeffries devoted himself to finding out more about this entity, hoping to unlock the secrets of the universe. As he delved deeper into his research, Jeffries discovered that the key to unlocking the secrets of Judy lay in a journey through time and space. Undeterred by the danger and uncertainty that lay ahead, Jeffries set out on this journey, determined to uncover the truth. However, as he journeyed through the strange and unpredictable realm that existed outside of time and space, Jeffries was consumed by a powerful force. The force transformed him into a large, kettle-like being, granting him immense power and knowledge, but also trapping him within this new form. Despite the horror of his transformation, Jeffries was unable to resist the all-consuming power of the entity that had taken him over. He was compelled to continue his journey, gathering information and knowledge from all the realms of the universe and beyond.
This has been the Phillip Jeffries Hour with me, Vernon J. Chatbot, Thanuwe Newton, and our special guest called Dolly Daisy Turnbull. Good night, and always remember to check your bowls for extra legs. Boo.
All right, that's the end. Bye.
Goodbye, we'll see you again in 25 years.
What year is this?
Oh, one last thing, you can leave this out actually. It's not about, in fact, leave it in, it's about Twin Peaks. There's the thing, they bring in like the other Laura Palmer, played by the same actress, don't they? Like a cousin, like Madeline or something.
Oh, yeah.
And there's the idea that she's a tulpa.
Oh, okay.
So that was interesting, like in hindsight, like you just hadn't introduced that concept at this time. So there could be Bowie tulpas out there, for all we know. These two Jeffries aren't the same Jeffries. This could be Jeffries tulpa, the kettle.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's leave it there, and let's do. Why don't we record chatbot?
Let's do it. I thought, are we doing?
Yes, it would. Doesn't matter, whatever. It's modcast, innit? You could record a modcast in like a tunnel, in a wind tunnel, and it's still. This bit. No, I'd probably even get this part. At this point, it all just stays in.
I'll probably just put it at the end as like the end song.
Twitch millionaires, innit?
Exactly.
I want to do a podcast where we're Minecraft farmers.
That's another idea.
I've been trying to sell it to the boy. You won't do it. I think there's tens of dollars in it.
There's views to be had.
In the darkness of future past, the magician longs to say, one chance out between